I'm watching my wife Miranda apply lipstick like she's painting a masterpiece, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm about to become the fool in someone else's story. She's getting ready for another one of those networking events at her tech startup, the kind where ambitious marketing directors supposedly discuss quarterly projections over craft cocktails and artisanal appetizers, the kind where she always forgets to mention I exist. "Don't wait up, Cole," she says, not bothering to look at me in the mirror. This team-building weekend could run very late, very, very late. I'm sitting on our king-size bed in our perfectly appointed Austin bedroom, watching the woman I married 12 years ago transform into someone I barely recognize. The house around us screams middle-class success, granite countertops, hardwood floors, a 2-car garage, but it feels hollow as a corporate boardroom. Everything looks perfect from the outside, which in this neighborhood means everything's probably rotting from within. The reflection staring back at me from the dresser mirror shows a 35-year-old man who's been sleepwalking through his own life. When did I become this person? When did I start accepting casual dismissal as normal conversation? "New dress?" I ask, though I already know the answer. It's a black number that costs more than most people make in a week, and it fits her like it was tailored specifically for her body. "Damien bought it for me," she says casually, like that's a normal thing for a CEO to do. "He said I needed to look the part for this weekend's strategic planning session." Damien Pierce, her CEO. 40-something, silver-haired, drives a Tesla Model S, and has the kind of smile that makes you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. I've met him exactly 3 times at company functions, and each time he looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. The last time was at their holiday party 6 months ago, where he introduced me to a client as Miranda's husband, the one who works from home. The dismissal in his tone was surgical, clean, professional. "What kind of strategic planning happens at 9 p.m. on a Friday night?" I ask, though I already suspect the answer won't satisfy me. She finally turns around, and I see that look in her eyes. The one that says, I'm asking the wrong questions. The one that's become increasingly common over the past year. The kind that gets people promoted, Cole. The kind that pays for this house and your little consulting hobby. My little consulting hobby, right? The freelance marketing business that generates $85,000 a year, plus another $45,000 in passive income from investments I've been building since before we got married. But she calls it a hobby because I work from home in jeans instead of strutting around a glass office tower in $1,000 suits. The irony isn't lost on me. When we first met at that coffee shop near UT campus 12 years ago, she admired my entrepreneurial spirit, called it refreshingly independent. Now that same independence is somehow a character flaw, a sign that I lack ambition or drive. "Miranda," I start, but she's already moving toward the closet, selecting shoes that cost more than my monthly car payment. "We've been through this, Cole. I'm building something here. Damien sees real potential in me, and I'm not going to waste it because you're feeling insecure about your career choices." Insecure about my career choices. That's how she frames my growing concern about her increasingly frequent late nights, her mysterious business trips, and her sudden interest in lingerie I never see her wear at home. A car honks outside. Not just any car. I can tell by the sound it's something expensive, something that purrs instead of rumbles. "That's my ride," she says, grabbing her overnight bag. The bag she packed yesterday, even though she only mentioned this last-minute retreat this morning. No kiss goodbye, no love you, just the click of heels on hardwood and the slam of our front door. I walk to the window and watch her slide into the passenger seat of Damien's Tesla. Even from the second floor, I can see her lean over and kiss him on the cheek. Or maybe it wasn't his cheek. The gesture is intimate, familiar, the kind of casual affection that develops over time. The car pulls away, and I'm left standing in my own house feeling like a stranger. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you room to maneuver, and I've been maneuvering longer than Miranda realizes. See, when you work from home, you notice things, patterns, changes in routine, like how Miranda started taking longer showers after her late meetings 3 months ago, how she began buying expensive lingerie from boutiques I'd never heard of, pieces that somehow never made it into our bedroom rotation. How she started getting texts at midnight from colleagues who supposedly respected work-life balance. Most telling was her sudden interest in our financial arrangements. Questions about my investment portfolio that she'd never shown interest in before. Casual inquiries about whether I kept detailed records of my consulting income. Offhand comments about how complicated our joint finances had become. So, 3 weeks ago, I did what any rational person would do. I hired a private investigator, Nolan Reed, ex-Austin PD, runs a one-man operation out of a dive bar on the east side that doubles as an unofficial meeting place for guys like me. Guys who figured out their perfect marriages aren't so perfect. Nolan has the kind of face that's seen too much, but still manages to find everything amusing. More importantly, he has contacts throughout the city and a reputation for getting answers that hold up in court. Most guys wait too long, he'd told me during our first meeting. They spend months second-guessing themselves, looking for innocent explanations. By the time they call me, the damage is already done. I handed him a retainer check and a list of dates, times, and locations where Miranda claimed to be attending business functions. I don't want to be most guys. The manila envelope is sitting on my nightstand now, thick with 3 weeks of documented surveillance. I've been avoiding opening it, hoping I was wrong, hoping my growing suspicions were just the paranoid imaginings of a husband who'd been watching too many crime documentaries. But Miranda's casual cruelty tonight, her dismissive attitude about my little hobby, her complete lack of interest in maintaining even the pretense of a loving marriage, it all tells me everything I need to know. I pour myself 3 fingers of bourbon and open the envelope. The photos spill across our Egyptian cotton bedspread like evidence at a crime scene. The photos are everything I expected and worse than I imagined. Miranda and Damien at the Austin Country Club, their body language intimate and familiar. Miranda and Damien at a house in Westlake Hills that belongs to someone named Catherine Wells. Miranda and Catherine Wells and 2 other women I recognize from the company parties, all dressed in evening wear that suggests this wasn't a typical business meeting. But it's the financial records tucked beneath the photographs that make my blood run cold. Nolan's investigation had been thorough. Bank statements showing unusual cash deposits in Miranda's personal account. Money that didn't come from her salary. Credit card records for hotels, restaurants, and purchases I'd never seen. Most damning were the email printouts that Nolan's tech contact had recovered from Miranda's company laptop. Damien's been running what Nolan calls a promotion pipeline. Female executives who want to advance participate in his private networking events. The ones who play along get promotions, stock options, and executive positions. The ones who don't get frozen out, demoted, or fired for performance issues. It's not just sex, it's systematic manipulation wrapped in the language of professional development. Strategic planning sessions, executive mentoring, leadership development retreats, all carefully crafted to provide plausible deniability while creating a network of compromised employees who owe their careers to sexual compliance. Miranda's been a willing participant for 8 months. The timeline matches perfectly with her sudden promotion from senior marketing coordinator to director, a jump that had surprised me at the time, not because she wasn't capable, but because she'd leapfrogged over 3 more senior colleagues who seemed equally qualified. Merit-based promotion, she'd told me when I'd asked about it. Damien recognizes talent when he sees it. The emails tell a different story, detailed discussions about performance metrics that have nothing to do with quarterly revenue. Scheduling for private consultations that always seem to happen at the Westlake Hills house. Most revealing are the messages between Miranda and Catherine Wells, who apparently coordinates the entire operation. New girl from finance asking too many questions, Catherine had written 6 weeks ago. Damien wants to know if she's promotion material or if we need to find reasons for restructuring her position. Miranda's response was chilling in its casualness. Leave it to me. I'll feel her out during the team lunch next week. If she's not a team player, I can document some performance concerns. They weren't just participating in this system, they were actively recruiting for it. But what really gets me is the document marked Exit Strategies, buried at the bottom of the manila envelope. My name heads a detailed financial profile that reads like a forensic accounting report. My consulting income broken down by client and contract value. Our joint investment portfolio worth $340,000, analyzed by asset type and liquidity. The mortgage I've been paying 60% of every month, despite earning less than Miranda. Even my 401k contributions and the small inheritance I'd received from my grandfather 3 years ago. They've been planning this, not just the affair, the financial extraction. The document outlines a strategy for maximizing Miranda's settlement in a potential divorce while minimizing her exposure to accusations of adultery. Steps to document my unreliable income as a freelancer. Ways to establish her as the primary breadwinner, despite my higher total earnings when passive income is included. There's even a psychological profile, apparently compiled by Catherine, who has a background in corporate psychology. It describes me as conflict avoidant, financially dependent despite appearances of independence, and unlikely to pursue aggressive legal action due to embarrassment about marital failure. They've been studying me like a lab rat. "You're replaceable," she'd said tonight, not in anger, as a statement of fact, as confirmation of a conclusion they had already reached. My phone buzzes, text from Miranda. "Don't wait up. Planning session running late. Might stay at Catherine's." Catherine Wells, the woman coordinating Damien's little network, the wife of a city councilman who's currently running for mayor, the woman who thinks I'm too weak to fight back. I text back, "No problem, working on some strategic planning of my own." She doesn't respond. I spend the next hour reading through every document in Nolan's file, memorizing names, dates, and details. The scope of the operation is staggering. At least 12 women over the past 3 years, including 2 who were pushed out when they tried to report inappropriate behavior. One woman, Helen Martinez, had been fired after refusing to attend a mandatory leadership retreat at Catherine's house. She'd filed a wrongful termination suit that was settled quietly for an undisclosed amount. By midnight, I have a clear picture of what I'm dealing with. This isn't just adultery. It's a criminal enterprise masquerading as a business operation, sexual coercion, tax evasion, securities fraud, and systematic workplace harassment, the kind of thing that destroys careers, companies, and lives when it comes to light. Which gives me an idea. I call Nolan, even though it's past midnight. He answers on the second ring, which tells me he was expecting this call. "You open the envelope," he says without preamble. "I need to ask you something. Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to make sure this kind of operation faced serious consequences, what would be the most effective approach?" There's a pause, then Nolan's gruff laugh. "Hypothetically, you'd need to think like a prosecutor. Multiple angles of attack, coordinated timing, and enough evidence that they can't buy or intimidate their way out of it. How long would something like that take to set up? Depends how much risk you're willing to accept. The slow approach takes months, maybe years. Build an airtight case, work with federal investigators, let the system handle it. The fast approach, how fast? 72 hours if you've got the stomach for it. But once you start that clock, there's no going back. You become someone different, someone who fights dirty. I look around our bedroom at the expensive furniture and carefully curated decorations that Miranda selected to project an image of success and stability. None of it feels real anymore. It's all just stage dressing for a performance I didn't know I was giving. I think I'm already someone different, I tell Nolan. I just haven't admitted it yet. Then we start tomorrow. But Cole, once we do this, there's no going back to being the guy who works from home and doesn't ask hard questions. You sure you want to become the kind of person who destroys lives? I think about Miranda's casual cruelty, about the women who lost their careers for refusing to play along, about the systematic way they'd planned to extract every dollar from our marriage before discarding me. They made their choice, I say. Now I'm making mine. Saturday morning arrives with the kind of crisp Austin clarity that makes everything seem possible. Miranda is gone, of course, supposedly at her weekend retreat. I know better now. She's at Catherine's house in Westlake Hills, participating in whatever twisted combination of business planning and personal degradation Damien has scheduled for his inner circle. By 8 a.m., I'm sitting in the conference room of Austin's most aggressive family law firm, signing retainer agreements with lawyers who specialize in high-conflict divorces involving financial fraud. "Your situation is more complex than typical adultery cases," Rebecca Walsh, my lead attorney, explains, as she reviews Nolan's evidence file. She's sharp-eyed, methodical, and has a reputation for taking scalps in contentious divorces. The financial manipulation aspect gives us several aggressive options. How aggressive? Emergency asset protection. We can freeze all joint accounts within hours, citing suspicious transfers and potential fraud. Your wife's been moving money to accounts you don't have access to. That's grounds for immediate court intervention. The plan we develop over the next 2 hours would make a military strategist proud. Multiple coordinated strikes designed to dismantle Miranda's carefully constructed exit strategy before she realizes the war has begun. Step 1. Secure the assets. By noon, court orders will freeze our joint accounts, pending investigation of suspicious transfers Miranda's been making to offshore consulting firms that exist only on paper. Step 2. Document everything. Nolan's contacts in the tech industry have been watching Damien's operation for months, building a file that the FBI's white-collar crime division has been quietly developing. My evidence provides the final pieces they need. Step 3. Legal nuclear option. Divorce papers citing adultery, financial fraud, and conspiracy. Filed Monday morning with a media strategy designed to maximize public embarrassment. Step 4. Professional destruction. Austin's tech scene is smaller than people realize. Reputation is everything, and I'm about to destroy theirs systematically. The beautiful part, Rebecca explains as we finalize the paperwork, is that everything we're doing is completely legal. Your wife and her conspirators plan to use the system against you. We're just better at playing their game. By noon, 3 things happen simultaneously. The locks on our house get changed by a locksmith who specializes in domestic disputes. Divorce papers get filed with Travis County, along with emergency motions for asset protection. And a comprehensive package of financial evidence gets hand-delivered to the FBI's white-collar crime division by Nolan's contact, a former federal prosecutor who now works in private practice. The timing is surgical. Miranda's credit card gets declined at 12:47 p.m. when she tries to pay for lunch at some trendy spot in the hill country. She tries again. Declined. She calls the bank and discovers that all accounts associated with our marriage are frozen pending a financial fraud investigation. She calls me 17 times in 10 minutes. I don't answer. Instead, I'm sitting in my newly secured house working on phase 2 of the operation. Finally, a text. What the fuck did you do? I text back. Strategic planning, very effective. See you in court. The second phase begins that evening when Miranda tries to get into the house and discovers the locks have been changed. She pounds on the door for 20 minutes, screaming about illegal eviction and theft of her property. The neighbors start gathering, which is exactly what I wanted. The officer who responds is someone Nolan knows, a veteran cop who's seen this scenario play out dozens of times. He explains to Miranda, in front of half the neighborhood, that when adultery and financial fraud are involved, emergency asset protection is perfectly legal under Texas family law. "Where am I supposed to go?" she screams, her composure finally cracking completely. "Maybe Catherine's place," I suggest through the intercom. "You know, for more strategic planning." The crowd of neighbors isn't large, but it includes 2 families with teenage children, and the retired couple who run the neighborhood's social media group. By tomorrow, every house in a 6-block radius will know that Miranda Palmer was locked out of her own home for cheating and financial fraud. Sunday passes quietly. I spend the time working on my consulting projects, real work that generates real income, not the sexual favors masquerading as professional advancement that Miranda's career depends on. The normalcy of it feels surreal after everything that's happened, but it also reinforces something important. I don't need their corrupt system. I built my own. Monday morning arrives with the precision of a military operation. At 9 a.m., divorce papers are served to Miranda at Damien's office, where she's apparently been sleeping on a couch since being locked out. The server is a former sheriff's deputy who enjoys making white-collar criminals uncomfortable. At 9:15 a.m., identical packages of evidence are hand-delivered to every major tech blogger in Austin, every financial journalist who covers startup fraud, and every competitor who's ever lost a contract to Damien's company. The packages are professionally formatted, meticulously documented, and absolutely devastating. At 9:30 a.m., the FBI executes search warrants on Damien's offices, Catherine's law firm, and the Westlake Hills house where the strategic planning sessions take place. By 10 a.m., the story breaks across every local news outlet simultaneously. Austin Tech CEO runs promotion for sex pipeline. targets employee spouses for financial fraud. I watch the coverage from my home office, the same room where Miranda used to mock my little hobby. The irony isn't lost on me. While she was prostituting herself for promotions, I was building something real, something that couldn't be taken away by sexual blackmail or corporate manipulation. My phone starts ringing at 10:15 a.m., reporters wanting quotes, lawyers offering services. 3 potential clients who've read about my situation and want to hire someone who fights back instead of rolling over. By noon, Damien's stock has lost 60% of its value. The SEC has announced a formal investigation. Board members are calling emergency meetings to discuss his resignation. Major clients are canceling contracts. And Miranda, who hitched her career to his star, finds herself unemployed and unemployable overnight. The beautiful part? I haven't broken any laws. Everything I've revealed is documented fact, obtained through legal channels, released in the public interest. When Damien's lawyers threaten defamation suits, they run into a simple problem. Truth is an absolute defense. When they try to have me charged with harassment, Nolan's FBI contacts explain that I'm actually a cooperating witness in an ongoing federal investigation into securities fraud and workplace sexual coercion. Austin's tech scene is smaller than Silicon Valley, but just as vicious when someone violates the unwritten rules. By Tuesday, Damien Pierce goes from respected CEO to toxic pariah. His network of compromised executives scrambles to distance themselves from the scandal, creating a cascade of resignations and terminations that ripples through the entire local industry. Wednesday brings news that Catherine Wells has been arrested at her home. The charges read like a criminal enterprise textbook: conspiracy, tax evasion, securities fraud, and what prosecutors carefully term operating a criminal organization masquerading as professional development. Her husband, the city councilman, holds a press conference announcing his withdrawal from the mayoral race and his intention to file for divorce. I had no knowledge of my wife's activities, he tells the cameras, but his political career is finished. Austin voters don't forgive being made fools of, and Catherine's use of his campaign as cover for her activities has tainted everything he touched. Thursday morning, Damien Pierce is perp-walked out of his offices in handcuffs. The FBI timing is deliberate, right during the morning rush when his employees and competitors will see him reduced from powerful CEO to common criminal. The visual impact is devastating and permanent. Local news runs the footage on loop. The man who once intimidated subordinates with his wealth and position, reduced to shuffling along in an orange jumpsuit. The networks love stories like this. Powerful men brought low by their own arrogance and appetites. By Friday, the domino effect is complete. 3 board members have resigned in disgrace. 7 female employees have filed wrongful termination lawsuits, emboldened by the public exposure of Damien's system. The company's largest client, a Fortune 500 corporation with strict ethics policies, cancels a multi-million-dollar contract and announces they're reviewing all vendor relationships. Miranda lasts exactly 1 week before calling my lawyer to negotiate. My client is prepared to be very reasonable, Rebecca tells me after the call. Apparently, unemployment and federal criminal exposure have clarified her priorities. The irony is perfect. The woman who thought I was replaceable now needs my cooperation to avoid prison time. The financial extraction strategy she'd planned so carefully becomes worthless when she's facing federal charges as an accessory to Damien's operation. She wants to make a deal, Rebecca continues. Full cooperation with federal prosecutors in exchange for immunity, but she needs your agreement to the divorce settlement first. What kind of settlement? She keeps her car and her clothes. You keep the house, the investments, and 70% of everything else. She also agrees to testify against Damien and Catherine in exchange for avoiding prosecution. Why would I let her keep anything? Rebecca's smile is predatory. Because generosity from a position of strength is the ultimate power move. Let her keep enough to survive, but not enough to rebuild. She'll spend the rest of her life knowing that her comfortable existence depends on your mercy. The psychological warfare appeals to me more than financial destruction. Money can be earned back. Dignity, once lost publicly, is permanent. The final settlement meeting takes place in a sterile conference room downtown. Miranda looks smaller somehow, diminished by circumstances beyond her control. Her expensive wardrobe has been replaced by off-the-rack business wear. The confidence that once intimidated me has evaporated, replaced by the hollow-eyed desperation of someone whose carefully constructed life has collapsed. "Why did you let me keep anything?" she asks during the final paperwork signing. It's the first direct question she's asked me since this started. "Because I'm not you," I say simply. I don't destroy people just because I can. It's the truth, but it's also calculated cruelty. By sparing her complete financial destruction, I force her to live with the knowledge that her survival depends on my continued goodwill. It's a more sophisticated revenge than simple bankruptcy. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the same East Austin bar where this all began, reading about Damien's sentencing hearing. 12 years, federal prison. The judge called his operation a systematic exploitation of power relationships that undermined the fundamental premise of workplace equality. Catherine got 8 years and lost her law license. Her political connections couldn't save her when federal prosecutors had audio recordings of her coordinating the entire operation. Miranda moved to Dallas and works for a small marketing agency that doesn't know about her background. We don't speak, which suits both of us. She testifies when required for ongoing prosecutions, but otherwise maintains the low profile of someone who narrowly avoided federal prison. "Any regrets?" Nolan asks, pouring me a whiskey. The bar has become our unofficial monthly meeting place, a tradition that started during the investigation and continued after. I think about it for a moment, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. Do I regret destroying my marriage? Do I regret ruining multiple lives? Do I regret becoming the kind of person who plans elaborate revenge schemes? No, I say finally. They made their choices. I just made sure there were consequences. That's the truth that lets me sleep at night. Everything that happened to Damien, Catherine, and Miranda was a direct result of their own actions. I didn't frame them or fabricate evidence or destroy innocent people. I just refused to be replaceable. The house feels different now. Bigger, somehow. Cleaner. I've redecorated, gotten rid of everything that reminded me of her, and converted her home office into a workshop for my little consulting hobby, which has grown into a 6-figure business with 3 employees and a waiting list of clients. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just divorced Miranda quietly, taken half of everything, and walked away. Would I be happier? Would I be a better person? But then I remember the other victims. Helen Martinez, the woman who was fired for refusing to attend Catherine's leadership retreat. The investors who trusted Damien with their retirement savings. The employees who believed they were working for a legitimate business built on merit rather than sexual compliance. Someone had to stop them. Someone had to make sure their actions had consequences that extended beyond private shame and quiet settlements. It just happened to be me. I raise my glass to the empty bar and toast the man I used to be, the fool who thought love and loyalty were enough, who believed in playing by the rules, who never imagined he was capable of the kind of calculated response that destroys lives and corporations with equal precision. That man is gone. In his place is someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Someone who learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to become the architect of someone else's destruction. Someone who discovered that refusing to be replaceable means being willing to replace others. And you know what? I sleep better now than I have in years,